Hey everyone, Sarah here, and welcome back to another week of Astra Season offense matches. This week ended up being a bit of a fun one, thanks to Legendary Julia's bonus week. The extra stats really push her into being a well-rounded mage, and I decided to use her as a ranged specialist, backed up by a near-safe bodyguard. The healing from Pact Blooms lets her use a damaging special, giving her more than enough firepower to punch through even high-res greens. Light and Dark is a great way to shut down visible buffs on the enemy team, and having both a guard effect and pulse smoke means that she rarely has to worry about enemy specials. Edelgard, as usual, is an excellent near-safe bodyguard, and this team also gave me a chance to try out Elimine for the first time. False Start is a very powerful tool for offense teams, a lot like Isolation was when it was first introduced. The ability to turn off key components of a defense team can make them significantly easier to handle. She also offers visible buffs and in-combat damage reduction to her allies, making her a very flexible support. Julia didn't quite sweep the week, and Claude got a couple of chances to shine too, along with one really awkward moment. Azura being a bonus unit gave him a lot of extra mobility to work with, and combining that with the extra firepower of Catria's triangle attacks lets him make short work of enemy teams. Now that we've gone over the teams, let's get to the first match. This match will be a fun way to start the week, with a demonstration of just how hard Elimine can shut down a Catria setup in Astra Season. She is a really strong counter to this, especially when you leave a Times Pulse unit in the same column so that you can get both effects neutralized at the same time. The setup itself is actually pretty neat and can be hard to tank if the offense team doesn't have an Elimine, since Volk and Byleth put together are very hard to deal with if they are able to use triangle attacks. And even without a dancer, the rally from Niffle can help force triangle attacks being enabled just by rallying forward onto Byleth. The bonus week Thrasir is also pretty spooky with triangle attacks enabled, and getting bolstered by Ceres' Winds of Flight just makes her hit that much harder. Having the combination of the Domain of Flame and Domain of Ice skills also can really mess with people's calculations on this, since it's easy enough for someone like Volk to be able to survive a counterattack thanks to Impact and Null Follow-Up and Domain of Ice. And the extra damage from Domain of Flame can really add up if you're not careful, especially with someone like Byleth and his low attack res. Byleth isn't in season here though, which does cut down on his ability to do much work since he's not getting the extra stats from Mythics. But overall the team can still be pretty spooky. Having Elimine on the team though means that I'm not really expecting to have many problems with this map. It should be a pretty straightforward affair as long as I keep Elimine in this column to shut down these effects on the first and second turns. I'm going to take this first turn just to maneuver into place and open up these front structures. Edelgard can jump all the way over here and swap Ashura, who can move over this way, and start opening things up. And Maria can open the fence, and Julia can just move over, while Elimine breaks the flag. Much to Edelgard's dismay. Then from here we can just smite Julia forward. Reposition Edelgard forward.
Tread carefully.
Move up once.
Why not?
Dance her. Move Julia up to break the Stark Shrine.
The choice is
and
clear.
that lets Edelgard move in and keep her safe from the melee.
Speak.
And we'll just move Elimine forward and say go. From here, without triangle attacks, there's not really going to be much they can do. Even though Niffle does get to shut down Edelgard's ability to counterattack, it still gets her knocked out.
You can't stop me.
And it's not like either Ceres or Catria can do anything to her either. And then from there, well, it should just be Julia handling ranged. For Catria attacks pretty ineffectively as well. Poor Byleth. Volk moves next, since he actually has less health to lose than Thrasir does. And Thrasir might be able to get some... oh, never mind. I was a bit worried that since Julia's debuffed here, the extra penalties from Killing Intent might help Thrasir out a bit, but it's not quite enough. And well, Katria gets to attack without being knocked out. And gets to do 1 point of damage with that moonbow, but that's about all she can do. The turn went pretty well, even though I was hoping that Niffle would just rally instead of attacking, which would have meant that Katria and Cirrus are knocked out here instead of just the Niffle, but it's still okay. Julia can actually knock out Cirrus here even without Dragon Slaying.
I call on the divine light.
Then we'll just have Edelgard swap her forwards. And then Ashura can move up this way, thanks to guidance, and get danced, which lets her pick up this first Aether pot. I actually somehow managed to forget we do still want to pick this Aether pot up before we finish the match here, so we're going to have to take a bit of drastic action to make sure we don't knock out both Muspel and Katria here, in case Muspel decides to attack instead of rallying like Niffle did. So we're going to smite Elimine onto this trap. If it's real, it'll hurt a bit, but it's not. Good. And then we're going to have Elimine move over and out of the way, while Ashura repositions Julia down and makes sure that Muspel is going to survive this turn. I'm not worried about Katria being able to attack Edelgard from off of a defense tile,
No mercy.
since now that Edelgard can counterattack, she's not going to survive. And now that we've averted a crisis, we can pick these Aether pots up and close things out.
Yes.
We're just going to smite Julia forward and let her finish off Muspel in a moment, while Ashura moves over to pick up this Aether pot.
Speak.
Elimine picks up the second one,
Oh, what?
and then Julia moves in and knocks Muspel out. That was a fun debut for this team. Let's see what we get next. This match is going to be a really fun one. It's a theme team featuring some extremely high investment Berkuts and a Renea. It's always fun to see a team like this. It's great to see people just spoil their favorites across several versions, and yeah, no, it's just really great to see this. There is a lot of threat here too. It's not just a theme team. If you underestimate these Berkuts, they can be very hard to bring down. This OG Berkut lulls 6 attack and defense and gets an extra 12 to his attack and defense in combat, so they're not necessarily easy to knock out. And the Unity helps protect this Berkut and this Berkut from debuffs, while this Renea has a very useful joint drive effect on her weapon and can be also pretty difficult to take down just thanks to the Unity effect in her own kit. And then of course they've got a plus 10 bonus week Thrasir, who's also very impressive, and a plus 5 Duma, and a Saros. The harsh command on Duma is actually pretty annoying as well, since we are using a lot of debuffs on this team. But at the same time it doesn't play too well with the Unities, so I'm not too worried about it. We should be able to make this work without too many problems and close it out. I am going to false start this column, lining up Upheaval and Infantry Pulse and even Duma's Boots in the same column. Make it a really great option for Elimine to disable.
Yes.
And then we're just going to spend this first turn cleaning up some structures.
Why not? Tread carefully.
And get ready for the next turn.
I'll do it.
I am the answer. It will be done.
The catapult would have sniped our safety fence, but we were able to break it before it does, so nothing happens this first turn. The only thing that would really change is that Renee would move over to dance Sarah's right away, but it wouldn't do too much to us here. And then from here we can just move everybody into position.
There is but one future.
Move Ashra and
Speak.
Elimine up to support,
Close your
along with
eyes.
Plumeria.
What is your desire? Yes.
And then we'll smite Julia forward onto the defense tile,
The choice is
and
clear.
let Edelgard keep everybody else safe. Yep. Renea can't do damage, so she always dances, and Doom always upheavals, which mean, upheavals. Harsh commands, which means that he then gets danced as well. And then Ceres and Fallen Berkut should attack into Edelgard, and
I'll cut my own path.
well, that's not going to end so well for them. I really hope Fallen Berkut
No
gets a good
mercy.
refine. It was always a little bit of an awkward weapon, and I think there's a good chance he gets something really cool. The first run went pretty well, even though we didn't knock out quite as many of their units as I would have liked. And from here we should be able to just start picking apart the rest of their team.
I will go.
I'm going to move Elimine over here. She's still safe thanks to Edelgard, so Berkut's not going to threaten her.
I
And
understand.
this should let Julia take down Thrasir over the course of a couple of attacks.
I'll do it.
And then we'll just dance Julia,
I am the
have
answer.
Ashra flip Plumeria down and away from Renea, who would be a little bit spooky. And then Julia can take down Thrasir and finish her off. The panic doesn't really do anything since Ashra's stopping that from working. And from here we should just be able to end turn and knock out one or two of their units. I think the harsh commands might chain a little bit. No, we will end up getting Duma this turn. Or not, because Renea moves first.
I call on the divine light.
And down she goes. And then the other Berkut moves in and walks right into Edelgard.
I won't back down.
He does survive that first hit, which is actually really impressive for a blue unit into Edelgard. And now at this point it's just about cleaning these pots up before we finish the match.
I understand.
Julia can knock Doom out, since he can't prevent her follow-ups if she's at full health.
Why
And
not?
then we can dance her forward
I will do
to
what
go
I
pick
can.
up the first Aether pot.
Speak.
Then we'll have Elimine move in and break the tactics room, which also helps protect Julia from Berkut next turn.
There is
And then we'll
but
move
one
Ashra
future.
forward,
The choice is
and
clear.
Edelgard out of the way of saving Julia this
What
turn,
is your desire?
and say go. Berkut can get a little bit of damage done here. Julia doesn't have quite that much defense. But he also can't double her, or
What?
threaten her too much. And from there it's easy enough for Julia to pick up the pot, and
Forward.
we'll let Edelgard move forward a little bit,
Close your eyes.
and dance her,
The choice is
and let
clear.
her close out the match.
You can't stop me.
The Courtly Candle damage reduction is doing a lot of work too there. It's a very fun team. Let's see what we get next. This match isn't quite going to be as interesting as the last one. It's a bit of a freebie setup, and they do have some recent legendaries in their roster here, with Corrin and Faye and Micaiah. We're all also in season this week, and getting boosted by a level 1 Odor and a Saros. They also have this +5 Daros over here, who's only using his base kit, which is a bit odd when he's got so many marches, and a Nami in the corner. This Rapid Cryobozu, actually a pretty cool thing to use on a defense team, since if you can line up the stats correctly, it can actually boost multiple units on the team. Here it's only hitting Micaiah at the start of this, but only by a couple of points. Corin almost ties her. I don't really think I should have any problems with this at all. We should actually be able to get this started on the first turn, and close it out pretty quickly from there. I'm just going to false start Faye to make it a little easier to knock her out.
Speak.
And then we'll have
what?
Julia move
Close
up,
your eyes.
place her,
I am the answer.
flip her forwards,
What is your
smite
desire?
Edelgard over here,
I will do what I
let
can.
Julia move in and take down Micaiah. Which also helpfully charges Iceberg for handling Mamie later.
The choice is
And then
clear.
we'll swap Asher forwards and enemy phase most of the rest of their team. Corin, well, isn't getting a whole lot done here.
You can't stop me.
And even with negating Fang, she's not surviving an effective damage bonfire. Utter goes in next. He's got the least
I'll
health to
cut my own
lose as a
path.
level 1. And then Saris and Faye move in and meet about the same sort of fate as Corin.
No mercy.
Oof. There's some big bonfires here.
I won't back down.
One thing I did notice when I was looking at this and trying to understand it was that we actually do have a pretty significant fortress advantage here too, which sort of makes this a bit easier than it even had to be.
Oh,
And we
what?
won't have any trouble closing the match out here. Julia can pick up this first pot for us.
Forward.
We'll just have Edelgard move in behind her to keep her safe from arrows. It's a real trap, but
There is
that
but
doesn't matter
one
here.
future.
We'll reposition Elimine over to
I
the
will
right,
go.
break this,
I'll do
and
it.
dance her forward and claim a second Aether pot. And then Edelgard and Julia will have no problems in this enemy phase. It's only the second turn, so the Bolt Tower doesn't even get a chance to fire.
I call on the divine light.
You can't stop me.
It's a bit of a freebie match. I won't complain about getting it, but let's see if we get something more interesting next time. This match will be a bit more interesting than the last one. They've got a legendary Sigurd setup here, with a young Lara Shaw on the front line to help disable any counterattack potential of anyone trying to tank this setup, and a Dio Corin, who's pretty legitimately hard to tank if you're not careful thanks to just how hard she can hit and the brave weapons that she has. The near save Edelgard on the front line is a nice touch and really helps avoid the more vulnerable targets on their team getting gale forced, or even just hit and run with Reagan. Although Reagan might be able to take Edelgard down if she's not careful thanks to the adaptive damage. And of course a Ceres for the 7th slot and Mirabilis as a dancer to go with the Zura for 2nd dancer. Replacing Mirabilis' weapon is an interesting idea. I'm not really sure why they did it, since they don't have a good way to get this moonboat charged, and I guess they're just hoping to make it more dangerous to tank her while people stall for the Aether pots later on. I don't think we're going to have too many issues here. It should be a pretty straightforward match, and well, it'll give me a chance to actually use Elimine in some clever ways, even if it's a little degenerate to be using her. I'm going to start things off just by disarming Sigurd's quickened pulse, and
Tread
we're not
carefully.
really going to move around very much on this turn, just count on our safety fence to turn off their first turn, and then we'll set up a second false start for turn 2 on La Rochelle. And we'll say go. And now that we've turned off her staff, she won't be able to disarm Julia's counterattacks. And since she doesn't have a natural dazzling staff of her own, it's very easy for Julia to tank her. So we're just going to move Elimine here, and
Yes.
smite Julia over to the left.
Oh,
Julia
what?
can move up here,
Forward.
and get swapped forward to move into position
Why
to
not?
tank and get saved from. Then we'll
The choice
dance
is clear.
Edelgard and swap Plumeria back over to safety,
Yes.
and do the same for Ashura. From here, I'm not sure what order they're going to go in. Okay, so Secret rallies first, and then gets danced, and then attacks into Edelgard.
I'll cut my own path.
He does survive this first bonfire,
I will see it done.
but the Holy Knight Aura ends up landing on her damage
No
reduction, so he doesn't get to do much with that. And all this really does is make sure that we can also knock out Corin and Saros. Corin can get some damage done here, but unfortunately for her, she can't actually survive Julia. And, well, Sarah's attacking into Edelgard never ends well for her.
You can't stop me.
And then we wrap things up with La Rochelle. Actually wasn't expecting Azura to attack Julia at all here. I was hoping Edelgard would get danced and end up swapping onto this tile and get her weapon disabled. But it's okay. We can still make this work pretty easily, as Julia can finish off Azura here. From there, we're going to move Edelgard forward one space, which
Close
lets
your
Plumeria
eyes.
jump forward and dance Julia,
I will do
who
what I
can then
can.
knock out Mirabilis. And without Mirabilis,
I won't run.
Edelgard doesn't have any warp points anymore and can't reach us. She should move on to this defense
I
tile,
will
so we're
go.
going to move Elimine here
It will be done.
and disable her weapon for next
There
turn.
is but one future.
And that should make it a lot easier to reach these pots. Yep, there she goes. And she won't be able to move an extra tile next turn. And then from here,
What?
that lack of movement should make it pretty easy to close things out. Julia can just walk forward and pick up the
Why
first
not?
pot, and we'll dance her.
I am the
And then we'll
answer.
flip Edelgard forward, and
The
she can
choice
use
is
her own
clear.
ability to swap Julia over,
I understand.
which lets her reach this pot and be safe from Adel for the following turn. And we'll just say go.
I won't back down.
And we close it out with Edelgard versus Edelgard. Let's see what we get next. This match should be another interesting one. I haven't seen too many Brave Micaiahs on defenses since her remix. I do think her Refine is maybe a little bland, but still pretty strong. Auto follow-ups and getting boosts based on her opponent's penalties can do a lot of work for her with the right support. They've also got an Alphonse here as their duo unit, who self-enables Open the Future with the help of Sylvia and her Infantry Pulse. And this Curie is really neat too. She's a deceptively bulky frontliner thanks to Mirage Rod and the Lull and the bracing stance. But it does mean that she's not quite as scary when she actually initiates on somebody. Bonus week, Thrasir is also a pretty credible threat, especially when enabled with ground orders and being boosted by Ceros's Wings of Light. Ceros is almost always getting danced by Mirabilis here, unless you somehow bait Mirabilis. And the ground orders from Mirabilis and Micaiah, to a lesser extent, help just enable some mobility for the rest of the team. This team's actually almost able to make sure that Alphonse pre-charges his special, no matter what, even against an Elimine, as long as they had one more infantry pulse on their team. Which would also do a lot for helping enable Thrasir and Curia. I am going to use Elimine to turn this infantry pulse off, mostly just to make sure that we can knock out Alphonse in one hit, since he is bulky enough to survive one counterattack that isn't an iceberg from Julia, and I'd rather not have to worry about him running places we don't want him to go. So, once we get everyone into position, we should be able to get things started. There we go. So we'll start off but just by opening things up a little bit here. And carefully maneuvering Elimine over into the left side.
I will go.
Just to make it easier for her to get to her spot for this next turn.
Tread carefully.
And move over and say go. Nothing happens this first turn thanks to the safety fence. So from here we'll have Julia move in. She actually beats this Panic Gunner's health check, even if we didn't have Ashura protecting her from the effect.
Speak.
We'll move Elimine here and not break anything.
Close your eyes.
Dance Julia.
It will be done.
Smite Edelgard forward past the mountains.
I understand.
Move Julia into place. Oh, it wasn't real.
The choice is clear.
Edelgard in to protect her from Ceros.
I am the
And
answer.
then we can just move Ashura here. First thing that happens is the dance, and then, well, we're just going to go down the health chain a bit.
I'll cut my own path.
We've given Edelgard a lot of opportunities to knock Ceros out this week. Micaiah can get a bit of damage done, thanks to the hefty amount of bonuses she's getting from her weapon, and also from her Tech Res Bond 4.
This feeling, this power.
But she's not really going to be able to handle Julia. And without being able to charge up an iceberg, Julia is always going to end up coming out on top in this fight.
I won't run.
Down she goes. And from there, well, Julia should just be able to heal herself all the way back up towards full health. Even with her bonus week, Thrasir still can't really punch through Julia. And, well, without a special, Alphonse isn't getting anything done either. I do think that Thrasir's going to become a lot more dangerous once she gets her remix. Even if that might take a little while to get to. Then with Curia out of the way, all that's left is the dancers. That went pretty well too, and all we want to do is make sure we pick up this last Aether Pop before we close things out. We should be able to do that just by swapping Elimine over.
There is
And then
but one
flipping
future.
Plumeria to the right
Why not?
to dance Elimine.
I will go.
Let her snag this pot. And then we'll just let Edelgard close things out with the dancers. Oh. She's not going to have any problems with either of them here.
You can't stop me.
And down goes Sylvia.
I'll cut my own path.
It's a pretty straightforward one. Let's see what we get next. This match is going to be an interesting one. It's actually the first one that I didn't end up wanting to use Julia for. Mostly because of the combination of this maxed out gang roll. I think this is mostly an arena build, but it's still pretty spooky if you underestimate him. The extra true damage he gets from res can really add up if you aren't paying attention to it. And of course, this maxed out Python on the side is the real reason I didn't want to bring Julia to this fight. He's pretty impressively bulky, and he's also pretty quick. Makes him very hard to take out in one round of combat. Rounding the team out with a sprinkling of other units, including a Winter Altina as their duo's hindrance enabler. I haven't seen much of her lately on offense or defense. And an Aether, a bonus week Thrasir, Mirabilis for some dances, and this Farsave Fae. It's a really neat forma here, although I'm sure they got something other than Lightning Breath. She does a lot of work at keeping them safe, especially from any enemy mages. Unfortunately for her, we're not using mages here, we're using Claude. And Claude's not going to be too concerned about her very impressive res stat. I'm actually doing a little bit of science with this match. I'm not sure if, with Gangrel being blocked by Altina, this threatened tile counts for activating the map for safety fence. It'll be interesting to find out. So what we're going to do is start by testing this bolt trap with Catria. Oh, and it was fake. It's a shame. If I'd been confident in that in being fake, I would have just gone for this and it would be much easier to do. It's okay though. We can still just flip Claude over to the left, dance Naga, and then have Azura back up to here. And then the extra movement lets Naga flip Catria down.
Why not?
And we'll dance Ashura, who can break this tactic room for us.
Sure thing.
And then we'll have Claude move in and take down Fae. So, if this safety fence goes off, it'll be interesting because this is a threatened tile according to the danger area. So we'll see. Okay, good to know. Part of the way I worked this was to make sure that Azura would threaten the tile that Thrasir moved onto,
Hold a grudge if you must.
which forced her to get repositioned back by Aether and waste Mirabilis' dance. Even if we didn't actually get the safety fence activated, this still worked out pretty well. And we are going to need to pull off some shenanigans to handle this next turn safely, though. So we're going to start by having Catria break this, and then stay put, while Naga breaks this Aether pot. Claude is going to clear his debuffs and then get danced by Azura, while Ashura opens up this throne, which lets Claude use the extra movement to move up and knock out Aether. Knocking out Aether gravities Python, which means this spot is safe for Plumeria to dance in one more time, so he can move up into this corner and knock out Mirabilis. And from here, Thrasir can reach him, but she's attacking into 80% damage reduction, and the other two can't reach us. So she should get rallied, yep, and then move in to attack, and get knocked out. And from there it should be pretty easy to clean things up. We'll just start by knocking out Altina.
Ready or not, here it comes.
And then we'll dance Claude once, and let him finish off Python, who's honestly very impressive.
You
But unfortunately, he's not using Deadeye,
Leave. Now.
so Claude can tank him without too many problems and close out the match. This match will be a fun one near the end of the week. They've got a bit of a safe ball here with an Ascended Fjorm and a Halloween Robin, who I haven't really seen much of outside of his bonus week. I do think he does a pretty good job as a near-safe bodyguard, though, and Niffle, providing both of them with extra damage reduction, does a lot to boost their survivability. The two dancers always help, with Dorothea providing some extra chill spectrums to the mix, and Mirabilis just being her usual debuffy self. They've also got a Nadelguard over here, who gets to transform thanks to her dragon allies nearby. And overall, I think it's a pretty reasonable setup. It's difficult to approach and difficult to attack into, since even if you do disable Fjorm's Ice Mirror, she still gets damage reduction on the first hit thanks to Niffle. I don't think I'm going to have too many issues here, though. We should be able to crack this open starting on turn 1 and clean it up from there.
Yes.
I'm going to have Asher move up and break this statue for us, while
What's
Naga,
this?
oops, Naga
Yes.
breaks this lamp.
Sure thing.
We'll have Claude break this wall,
Not
move
my
Catria
first
forward
choice.
to enable triangle
not know.
attacks, which lets Claude get danced
Let's go.
and use the extra movement to move forward and take down Fjorm.
Huh.
Even with all of the damage reduction, it's still a little bit too much when Claude's almost doing her entire health bar every swing. And
Close
then
your
we'll just dance
eyes.
Claude,
Sure thing.
move him over here to knock out Dorothea, and with Dorothea out of the picture and all of the gravity effects in play, that should let our safety fence kick in and stop their first turn from happening. Yep, there we go. With their far safe bodyguard and one of the dancers out of the way, cleaning this up shouldn't be too hard. We just need to make sure that we can actually reach these without worrying about traps.
Wait for
So
me.
to do that, we're going to have Catria test one of the traps with Plumeria, move down,
Sure thing.
and then Claude can move in and knock out Edelgard.
Huh.
She will get a bonfire in, but it's not
I
enough
am
to keep her
absolute.
alive.
Ha!
There is
Then
but
with the
one
Catria
future.
down, which should let
I'll do
Plumeria
it.
dance Claude. Let
Let's
him
go.
move forward to knock out Niffle, even without a triangle attack.
Huh. Hold a grudge if you must.
It will be
And
done.
then reposition Azura forward
So fun.
and have her dance him one more time
What's this?
to knock out Ceros. And then from here, they can't actually reach us, since Robin can only move one tile at a time, so even with a dance, he's not going to cover that distance this turn. From here, we just want to pick up these ether pots before we close things out, and unfortunately this one's a little bit farther away than we can reach and close out the match this turn.
Yes.
But we should still be able to make this work.
What's this?
Once we open
Why
things
not?
up a bit, we can just dance Claude over
Let's go.
and let him knock out Mirabilis.
Huh.
Looks like
And
it's
then we'll
my
just
turn.
dance him
Sure thing.
and let him use Fallen Star to tank Robin for a turn.
To be by
And
his
then we'll
side.
just move Catria and Naga forward
Yes.
and wait. When he's defending, or when he's not defending and doesn't have any support, he can't really do too much.
What's this?
And with a Luna charged, Robin's not going to be too hard for Claude to take down.
I won't back down.
This match was a bit of an embarrassing one right at the end of the week. They've got a pretty solidly invested team here with a Unity Fallen Edelgard backed up by a neat Farsave Brave Edelgard, and a +6 Winter Bernadetta, who's a bit of a smokescreen for the real trap on the team, which is actually the Veronica on the other side. The healing tower actually undoes the effects of Bernadetta's weapon every turn, so the trap here is actually the Restore, which should always hit the Fallen Edelgard thanks to the bonus week Dark Shrine. It's a very clever setup and can definitely catch a lot of people off guard, but I did have a working plan of attack for this, and things started out pretty well. Claude doesn't have any issues punching his way through Doom and Bernadetta on this first turn, and taking the two of them out also means that we're all out of range of them for this first turn, and lets the safety fence shut them down and keep us safe. From here, though, I think I lost track a little bit of who was buffed by Catria to enable triangle attacks for Claude. And while he doesn't have any issues punching through Brave Edelgard and Saros, I ended up picking an incorrect dance location for his third attack, and had Azura dance him from the left instead of from right above him, which means that he doesn't actually have a triangle attack option to finish this Edelgard off in one round of combat. And without being able to knock her out in one round, we can't actually close this out without losing people, so I surrender the match and move on. This match is going to be a neat one to close the week out with, starring a legendary Claude and Eldgan who are both using Iodes. Also the new Ground Order seal, which is fun to see. I do think we're going to start seeing a lot more Ground Orders on defense teams, although they might want to work it onto a higher res unit, since Elimine is a little bit of an obstacle for it these days. We're also just filling this out with 2 more mythics with Saros and Thrasir to complement Duma, and boosting it with another in-season legendary in Micaiah and the Lysithea. Micaiah, Lysithea, and Claude are a pretty solid trio of colorless threats who can demolish a lot of opponents if those opponents aren't ready for them. Claude in particular, as long as he's outspeeding his opponents, is very difficult to handle in the enemy phase thanks to Fallen Star, and Micaiah's damage reduction on the first swing can get her into that desperation range pretty easily for Eldgan to let her follow up. And this colorless feud is always just really obnoxious, since there are a lot of colorless supports. I'm not expecting to have too many problems here though, and we should be able to close out the week with a bit of nonsense by letting Julia tank a legendary Claude. It'll be funny. We're going to get things started right away. Julia can just move up here thanks to guidance and break a statue. And then we'll have Edelgard jump past Elimine, who can move into position and break one of the thrones. I actually ended up getting just a little ahead of myself here and forgot that I did need to have this broken by Plumeria. But that's okay, we'll just take one more turn to get there, and it'll be fine. We'll just get Asher back over here to re-enable buffs.
What is your
And
desire?
that also lets us get Dragon Slaying onto Edelgard for the following turn. And their first turn gets locked out anyway. And there, we're just going to reposition Edelgard and let Plumeria sneak in here to break this wall, which lets us smite Julia and give her a full set of buffs,
The choice
before
is clear.
Edelgard warps back over here to keep her safe from the melee, and we wait. I think the first thing that happens here is oh no, Micaiah's actually attacking right away. I expected her to use Maiden's Solace on Thrasir, but this works out pretty well too. Julie's not having any problems
This feeling, this power.
punching through Kaya, especially since the auto follow-up guarantees that Julia gets to iceberg her. And since she also naturally doubles Claude, there's no way for him to survive this either. Next up is Thrasir, who's, well, not having a good time with this in her bonus week.
I won't run.
And then Lysithea should come next. Yep. Who is also getting outsped by Julia. And then I think we're going to see a dance, yeah, since Eldigan can't do any damage to Edelgard. And that's all there is for the turn. With all the ranged threats out of the way, we just want to make sure we pick up these Aether pots for a nice clean
There is
finish.
but one future.
And we can mostly just
Close your
stay in the same
eyes.
place this turn, since
Yes.
Edelgard and
Speak.
Elimine are pretty good at securing this combat with two
Yes.
dragons, especially with the dragon effect of Edelgard, thanks to Naga. Cirrus moves in and, well, gets a little bit wiped out.
You can't stop me.
And while Duma doesn't have a triangle disadvantage working against him, he's still not going to get anything done here.
No mercy.
And Eldigan can't reach. Unfortunately, I
There is
moved a
but
little
one
bit here
future.
on
I
trying
am
to
the answer.
open this up. And since this is a real gravity trap, I think it means we need to take one more turn to reach this Aether pot.
Why not?
So we'll just take our time,
It will be done.
move over and out of the way of Eldigan for one
I
turn,
will do what I can.
more. And close things out next turn. And even with Eldigan trying to intercept us
There
over
is
on
but
this side,
one future.
we'll be able to knock him out here.
Close your eyes.
Ashura can pick up the Aether pot
Yes.
for us.
I will do what I
And then we'll
can.
let Julia move in and close out Leak.
This feeling, this power.
And down he goes. It was a fun week overall. Using Julia as a tank wasn't something I actually considered until, well, building the teams for this week, so it was really good to see her work out so well in her bonus week. I'm still a little bit annoyed at myself over messing up that one match. I could have managed it if I'd just put Azura in the right spot to dance, but oh well, mistakes happen. Next week should be another fun one. I might actually end up getting to debut a Zelgius build for it. We'll see. I'm still sort of talking myself into the fodder I need for it, so... I do have a Discord channel if you'd like to hang out and chat. There's a link in the description, and I've also got a Patreon page there if you'd like to help support the channel. As always, I hope you've enjoyed the video, good luck with your own matches, and I'll see you next time.